Cuba Blackout, 6th nationwide blackout amid U.S. pressure. Chapter 1 The Hook. Cuba is in crisis. The island nation has suffered its 6th nationwide blackout in just over a year, plunging 11 million people into darkness. The latest outage began on Sunday and has left the entire country without electricity for over 48 hours. This is not just an inconvenience. This is a humanitarian emergency. Hospitals are running on backup generators. Water treatment plants have shut down. Communications are severely disrupted. And the cause appears to be a combination of aging infrastructure and escalating U.S. pressure. Let us break down what is happening in Cuba right now. Chapter 2 What happened? On Sunday, August 2, 2026, Cuba's national electrical grid collapsed, triggering a nationwide blackout that affected every province on the island. The outage began in the early morning hours and quickly spread across the entire country. By midday, the Cuban government confirmed that the entire national electricity system had failed. The blackout is the 6th nationwide outage Cuba has experienced since early 2025. Previous blackouts in January, March, May, June, and July had already severely impacted the island. Each outage has lasted longer than the last, and the recovery time between them has been shrinking. This latest blackout is the most severe yet, with no clear timeline for when power will be restored nationwide. Cuban state media has attributed the blackout to sabotage and technical failures in the aging electrical infrastructure. But independent analysts say the root cause is much simpler. Cuba's power grid is decades old, poorly maintained, and critically underfunded. The country has been unable to import enough fuel to keep its power plants running at full capacity. Chapter 3 The Human Impact. The human impact of the Cuba blackout is severe. Hospitals across the island are operating on backup diesel generators, but fuel supplies are running low. Several hospitals have reported that they are rationing power, prioritizing emergency rooms and intensive care units while shutting down non-essential services. Water treatment plants have also been forced to shut down, leaving millions of Cubans without access to clean drinking water. The government has warned residents to boil water before use, but many lack the fuel to boil water safely. There are growing concerns about waterborne diseases spreading in the coming days. Communications have been severely disrupted as cell towers and internet infrastructure have lost power. Many Cubans have been unable to contact family members, access emergency services, or receive information about when power might be restored. The blackout has also disrupted food storage, with refrigerators and freezers across the country going offline. Chapter 4 The U.S. Connection. The timing of this blackout is significant. The United States has been applying maximum pressure on the Cuban government for months. In July 2026, the Trump administration tightened sanctions on Cuba, targeting the island's oil imports and financial transactions. The U.S. has also increased its military presence in the Caribbean, conducting exercises near Cuban waters. Cuban officials have blamed the U.S. for the blackout, accusing American intelligence agencies of sabotaging the electrical grid. While there is no evidence to support these claims, the accusation reflects the growing tensions between the two countries. U.S. officials have denied any involvement in the Cuban blackout and have called for calm. The State Department has stated that the U.S. is not responsible for Cuba's internal infrastructure problems. However, the sanctions have undeniably made it harder for Cuba to import the fuel and equipment needed to maintain its power grid. Chapter 5 The Economic Impact. The economic impact of the Cuba blackout is enormous. Cuba's economy was already struggling under the weight of U.S. sanctions, declining tourism, and a severe shortage of foreign currency. The blackout has shut down businesses, factories, and agricultural operations across the island. The Cuban tourism industry, which is one of the country's main sources of foreign income, has been severely affected. Hotels and resorts that rely on backup generators have had to turn away guests. Tourist arrivals for August were already down significantly compared to last year, and the blackout is expected to make things worse. Agriculture has also been hit hard. Without electricity, irrigation systems have stopped working, cold storage facilities have gone offline, and perishable goods are being lost. Cuba imports a significant portion of its food, and the blackout has disrupted supply chains at ports and distribution centers. Chapter 6: The Historical Context. Cuba has experienced power outages before, but the frequency and severity of blackouts has increased dramatically in recent years. The country's electrical infrastructure was built in the 1960s and 1970s and has not been adequately maintained or upgraded. Cuba has been unable to invest in modernizing its grid due to a combination of U.S. sanctions, economic mismanagement, and the collapse of Venezuelan oil subsidies. The Venezuelan oil program, known as Petrocaribe, had provided Cuba with subsidized oil for over a decade. When Venezuela's own economy collapsed in the mid-2010s, Cuba lost its primary source of fuel. Since then, the country has struggled to import enough oil to meet its energy needs. The Biden administration's partial easing of sanctions in 2024 provided some relief, but the Trump administration reversed many of those measures in 2025 and 2026. The tightened sanctions have made it even harder for Cuba to import fuel and equipment, accelerating the decline of the electrical grid. Chapter 7: What comes next? The outlook for Cuba is bleak in the short term. Power restoration is expected to take several days, and the full recovery of the electrical grid could take weeks or even months. The Cuban government has appealed to international organizations for assistance, but the political situation makes it unclear how much help will arrive. In the longer term, Cuba faces a fundamental choice. The country needs massive investment in its electrical infrastructure, but it lacks the financial resources and political will to make those investments. Some analysts believe that Cuba may need to seek closer ties with other nations, including China and Russia, to secure the fuel and equipment needed to modernize its grid. The blackouts are also likely to increase political pressure on the Cuban government. The Cuban people have shown remarkable patience in the face of repeated outages, but there are growing signs of frustration and anger. Protests have broken out in several cities during previous blackouts, and the government has responded with arrests and increased security. Chapter 8: The Bottom Line. Cuba's sixth nationwide blackout is a humanitarian crisis that demands international attention. 11 million people are without electricity, clean water, and communications. The blackout is the result of decades of underinvestment, U.S. sanctions, and political mismanagement. The situation is unlikely to improve in the near term, and the Cuban people will continue to suffer until meaningful action is taken. The international community must push for a resolution that addresses both the immediate humanitarian needs and the underlying political causes of Cuba's energy crisis. The people of Cuba deserve better than repeated blackouts and economic hardship. Outro. If you enjoyed this video about the Cuba blackout, hit the like button and subscribe for more world news coverage. Drop a comment below telling us what you think about the situation in Cuba. Share this video with anyone who wants to stay informed about what is happening in the world today. Thanks for watching TrendForge.